The Pro Bowl is over. The Super Bowl is right around the corner, and that makes this the first Mock Draft Monday of the offseason. We're going to go over what the Chiefs' needs are, where they pick, and give you our first look at the top 4 selections for the Kansas City Chiefs in this NFL draft. Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome to the offseason, everyone. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free on all platforms and part of the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find us on YouTube. That is included in one of those. Please check out our sponsor. We have more from them coming later in the show. We're brought to you today by Get Upside. That helps us get on the road, track our stuff, and get to this, the first mock draft of the offseason. Now, this is something that I do every now and then during the regular season, but this is it. This is where the scenarios start to creep up. I'm excited about it. I know it's not what everybody wants to do, but hey, we might as well get into what the next evolution of this team is going to be, right, Chris?
Yeah, and he is Ryan Tracy, founder of Rogue Analytics, and the guy that is really diving into the draft right now because he is also co-host of the Locked On NFL Draft on Locked On. So thank you very much for that, Ryan. Really appreciate that. I am Chris Clark. You can find me also at Chiefs Corner. Just started that. Had my first article come out this weekend. And we will be talking about the NFL and the Chiefs, really talking about the salary cap in that first article. If you want to go check that out, Chiefs Corners, where you can find that. Talking about the draft is actually something I really enjoy every single year because it is the start of the offseason, or it feels like the start of the offseason, even though the draft is after free agency. But I always enjoy this time of year because it's fun to think about bringing in new players and new talent and what else can come.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. Is you've just seen whatever the end of your season was, particularly if you're a Chiefs fan, but even for other teams around the league that just got to the end of what they wanted to see be a championship run. Only one team ends up happy at the end of the year. So it goes directly into what can we do to improve this roster? We know there's going to be losses. The Chiefs have 36 guys under contract right now?
38.
38. Folks, yeah, that's not even halfway. To a 53 plus practice squad roster. So
plus injury reserve. Yeah.
Right. Plus they need 90 for camp. So there's a long way to go.
Yeah. And they did make some reserve for future signings. So there's that, not really taking that into account right now. Just really looking at starting where the Chiefs have needs. Number one, I think they're going to have a need because I think that they're going to make some salary cap space. They're going to have needs at defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
I think that almost has to be the number one need.
And that's right where I was going to go too. Like it's the preeminent position on the defense right now, especially the way the Chiefs have decided to build this roster to this point, meaning that they are relying on, I won't say lesser talent, lower value talent in terms of draft picks and acquisitions at the cornerback spot. Whereas they have, an all-pro at one spot. They have Juan Thornhill, a high round pick, a top 100 at the other spot at safety, trying to make eraser players over the top of the corners. Although I do think that corner position is going to be one that they need as well. They are likely to lose Ward. We've seen what L'Jarius Sneed has been able to do, and we've seen what's been going on at the third corner position. They definitely need to bolster that position group.
They definitely will. And, you talk about them having an all-pro at safety. He's a free agent too. Who knows what's going to happen with Tyrann Mathieu? Both sides sound like they want to be in Kansas City. Frank Clark said he wants to be in Kansas City. I can't see either of those scenarios probably playing out the way that it looks right now, but we'll see how it ends up. They're also going to have a need at linebacker. Obviously they have Willie Gay, they have Nick Bolton, but you're going to need a third linebacker. You need somebody that can go in there and play that will position, and right now they don't have that guy.
And folks, we will be doing this throughout the course of the offseason. As every Monday, we will have our brand new mock, our brand new theory of how this could play out and what should work for the team. But those needs will change as well, because I expect the linebacker position to be one that is fulfilled in the free agency period, because I think they definitely want a veteran presence they don't have, especially with the departure or expected departure of Anthony Hitchens and likely Ben Neiman as well. So that would definitely be a road maybe over the draft that they might go down.
Yeah, and you start talking about other guys that they could be losing. Daniel Sorensen's also a free agent, so that's another guy you're going to have to more than likely replace, although I could see him back on a lower contract. I know a lot of people won't like that, but it's possible. We'll have to see how that ends up. Flip it over to the other side of the ball, though. And really quick, they may even need defensive tackle because, Jerron Reed's not going to be here. They have a couple of young guys. Derek Nottie is also going to be free agent. So how is that going to play out when it comes to defensive tackle? But if we flip it over to the other side of the ball, offensive line is in pretty good shape. Orlando Brown is going to get franchised. Unless they come up with some kind of deal before the season starts, he's going to get franchised. So I'm just figuring that he's going to be here. You would think that Lucas Niang is probably going to be your starter at right tackle. So I would say the line's pretty set. But past that, you're going to have to need depth guys. Allegretti played great. I think he's a good one. Wiley is a free agent, so you're going to have some lost depth there. You don't have a backup center right now. Lots of different places on the offensive line. You're probably good at tight ends. Running back, I would think you're pretty good at, especially if you can bring back a guy like McKinnon, although McKinnon and Williams are both free agents. And what's going to happen with Chad Henne at quarterback?
There are a lot of questions. I agree. All those things I think can be taken care of relatively smaller contracts in free agency. So we have our top needs. I think we've run them down: defensive end, corner, safety, maybe linebacker if they can't get something done. But they need a third weapon, correct?
Yep, I was going to say they need one more wide receiver. That's the position I left out. They absolutely need a wide receiver.
Yeah, it has to be right up there, and I would put it right even with the safety position, depending on what they can get done with Tyron's possible return on a contract. We'll see how that all shakes out. I think for the continuity on the field, I think the best option would be to work something out with Tyrann Mathieu to get him back. But we're a long way from there right now, folks. So the last thing, and you mentioned it, the O-line seems pretty set, but I will say this. I think they need to look at a depth tackle. Somebody they can project that needs growth, but that should be a tertiary or a secondary look at their needs. So I think in general, we have an idea of what we need to do. We're going to go over their picks here in a second when we get back. But there are things that we need to do before then just to set the stage for this first mock draft.
This is a time of year that I've pretty much given up on all New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my New Year's resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them, and I really do. The Built Bar bars are absolutely fantastic. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors: cinnamon, churro, chocolate marshmallow, banana cream pie. Very, very good. These are going to be your new favorite. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. That's 100% real chocolate, low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar could be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Meanwhile, most Built Bars are around 150 to 170 calories. Compare that. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and all new this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They are all delicious, and all new flavors are coming out all the time. If you think a flavor might be good, they'll make it. It will be delicious, and it will be good for you. At Built Bar, they are all about taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every single time. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com.
Now, I really want to get into, just so we all have an idea of where they are right now. Remember, there's Super Bowl coverage coming all week. You can check that out. I don't think you want to miss it. I know it's tough to not watch the Chiefs be in it, but there's going to be great content from this network. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy that. So check that out. Now, what we have, I'm projecting it to be the 30th. We don't have that officially, as far as I understand. We should get the official rundown after the Super Bowl. So right now, we're going to treat the Chiefs as though they have 30 and 62 and 94. Those will be the 30th slot in each round. Plus, they're going to have an additional pick. Now, the comp picks are always kind of haywire, out of whack. In general, you can think they're going to be somewhere right around 100. We're going to call it 102 because that seems to be the consensus on most of the mock draft simulators, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Beyond that, it's quite a number of changes past that. There is a fourth round that should be their original. Then there's no fifth. There's been a swap of 6. They should still have one as it all works out in the formula. And then 3 seventh round picks, none of which I expect to actually be selected. So they will be fodder for trades. They will be fodder for other things. I don't think that is going to be something that they use, but we'll get to those scenarios down the line.
Yep.
Today, is there
will say
anything about that I'm wrong on?
I don't think they have a 6th-round pick. They
You
traded
don't
away a
think so?
6th-round pick for. They got a 6th-round pick back for the trade to bring in. God, I can't even remember now. They got a 6th-round pick. No, they traded away their 6th-round pick to get a player, Mike Hughes, and then they got back a 7th. But they also traded away a 6th-round pick to get Melvin Ingram at this point. And that's
Okay.
conditional. So the question is, did he meet any of the conditions as far as we know right now? I don't really think he did, because I would imagine that those were probably based on sacks. He didn't really have that many. So I would imagine it, or it could have been on playtime. If it's on playtime, then that's a whole different ballgame, and maybe it was. But they don't have a fifth to give up. So I'm not exactly sure what else they would be giving up in that conditional arrangement.
Yeah.
And that's what we
and
don't
like
know.
I said, we'll lock that down when we get the official word, folks. So for now, we're going to rely and focus on the first 4 picks. And so we're going to fire up the simulators. And I think we'll start here with your friends that you guys know and love. And we're going to use the first 4 rounds. That's what we'll pick today. And we're going to jump in there, get this started. And for those of you that are subbed on all the free audio platforms, we're always going to be free. You can also watch on YouTube for free, and you can see this as we go through it, the visual on the video. So like, sub, and hit the bell. Get over there to Locked On Chiefs, and we'll put links to everything down in the description of this show as well, no matter what platform you're on. So let me kick this off, and we'll just let the simulator do its thing. We'll get to the position that the Chiefs are going to be in right now, I believe, at 30th on this simulator, as well as what we think. And then that brings into those choices based on those needs that we've talked about as they exist today. I'm not going to entertain trades today. I think that is a scenario we can look at down the road. So what we see very recently is going to be the last few picks before Daxon Hill off the board, one of the safeties, Devin Lloyd off the board. And I don't know that he makes it this far, but if he does, I would be thinking the Chiefs might want to jump up because I think he is the perfect complement to Nick Bolton and Willie Gay, to tell you the truth. But that's for another day. He is off the board. Edge Cameron Thomas, a guy that's a really interesting study, and I've only started to do the film on him from San Diego State. He's off the board, as is Nakobe Dean, what seems to be, for the most part, consensus number 1 LB. He's not mine right now, but I've switched those like 10 times this offseason. So
Wait a second. A Georgia guy is not your number 1? What is going on?
Just right now, he lost out to Devin Lloyd just by a little bit. Like it's back and forth. So we're going to keep, as the study goes on, I'm sure I'll find a way to differentiate them. So now we're sitting at 30. And with the things that we talked about, we have, let's see, Karlaftis went, Trayvon Walker went, who I'm really interested to see if he goes that high. Obviously, Ajabo, Jermaine Johnson going 7th, I think is crazy, but he's gone along with Thibodeau and Hutchinson. The edge position has been decimated in this scenario. And I don't know that there's anyone here. I actually expect Jermaine Johnson to be there, especially after this last week at the Senior Bowl. What I saw in person, I think definitely let your mind wander that he could be available around that area. I know a lot of folks are projecting him into the top half of the first round. I don't see that yet. So if he were here, he might be an option, but there's no edge here, right?
Right. And Jameson Williams is gone as well, who I actually think could be somebody that they would actually look at, even though he just suffered an ACL injury. He went to the Patriots at 21. And I know we said, excuse me, I know that we said that wide receiver wasn't as big of a need as edge. But the problem is as you said, edge has been decimated here. Unless you're going to be reaching for an edge, more than likely you're going to be looking elsewhere.
Agreed. I mean, right now, this has Ebiketie up top and Hall. I think Hall's a 3-tech, to tell you the truth. I don't think he's actually going to be an edge in the NFL. Myjai Sanders and Enigbare are going to be the top 2 on my list, along with Nick Bonito. Now, this has Nick Bonito really low. I would consider, especially if the Chiefs want to change it up in any way and play more stand-up outside pass rusher, then Nick Bonito's on your list. And he should be a lot higher than this. He should be a top 50 pick. problem is I think the Chiefs want to stick with 4 down linemen, 4 true defensive ends, and that makes things even thinner here at this position group. So I think edge is just not value. We have to take them off the board at the first pick here.
Yep, and I agree with you on that. I think that edge is not going to be the value there. I think you have to look at other positions. It's going to be a question. Corner I think could be something that they would look at, but you only have one corner. It looked like in the top 32 from what I'm seeing on the screen.
And Roger McCreary is not a guy that's going to fit a lot of the Chiefs' parameters and thresholds. He's short, he's small, he's not expected to be fast at the combine. He's very fluid, and he's very.
I was just going to say he is exactly the different type of corner that this team doesn't go after. They go after long, lanky corners with speed and with long arms. So definitely have to take that into account. So I would agree. I don't think he fits what they want.
So that leaves us at a bit of a conundrum. And there's a lot of depth here at wide receiver that looks to be the value as this scenario has worked out. And again, folks, this scenario will probably change next week. But does anyone stand out to you, Chris, that are available here at the top that you would be interested in selecting at 30?
Man, Chris Olave looks like a guy that I would think would be could possibly be a really good selection for Kansas City. I haven't dove into the draft yet this year near as much as I need to, but Kansas City getting a prospect like Olave, who I think is going to step in and is going to be a good wide receiver in the NFL, could really benefit this team.
Yeah, I think I like him out of the slot mostly, and it is Olave.
Sorry, you're right.
No, that's all right. You got to learn him somehow, right? I don't know that that's a fit that they really want. I think they need somebody they're searching for to go up and high point the ball, or what they always default to is flat out speed. And so for the two for me that stand out here would be Jahan Dotson and Drake London in each of those type of categories.
Do they have an X? Do either of those project as an X? Because that's what they really need.
Yes, Drake London is the next Mike Evans in a lot of people's minds. I'm not ready to make that full comparison, but he is a powerful route runner. He's not the fastest. He's not the best out of his breaks. He high punts the ball well, and he's impossible to tackle. I think this is exactly the kind of guy that they're looking for.
Well, and that's the big thing is if you take a guy like that, I think that really fits what Kansas City needs. They absolutely need somebody to step into that Sammy Watkins role that can be more dynamic than what they've had in the past year.
Now, that's true. And it's interesting that you bring up Sammy Watkins because I don't see Drake London as that kind of player. Drake London is more the high point, not a ton of yak. I think if you're looking for that, you might reach down to David Bell if you want somebody that's a little bit more dynamic.
And I guess I just want to say I wasn't necessarily talking about dynamic near as much as I was talking about somebody that can actually pull coverage.
Okay.
Dynamic is going to be important. Don't get me wrong. Sammy Watkins was dynamic, but he was also injured all the time. But the thing he did for Kansas City that was so valuable was he pulled coverage from Hill and Kelsey, and he was able to win one-on-one matchups. If Mahomes will trust a guy like London, then that's all that really matters. If he'll give him the 50-50 ball, that's all that matters.
Okay, and it looks like they're a little more willing to throw this year than last. So let's do that, and we'll make Drake London a Kansas City Chief. We're going to let this roll, folks, and we'll get to the rest of the top 100 picks for the Kansas City Chiefs coming up next. And I just got a trade offer. I'm going to let that stand here because I do want to tell you guys about Get Upside. You have to check this thing out because it allows you to save on things that you have to get all the time anyway, and that is gasoline purchases. All you have to do is grab the app. It's at any app store. Download it to your device, put in the code touchdown that lets them know that you found it from us and you get the deal, and start tracking your gasoline purchases. You get money back on every gallon that you purchase through this application, and it just racks up in your application. Then you pay yourself back through a bank account, a PayPal account, e-gift cards, Amazon, whatever you want. And so what you have to buy anyway, you get some return on it, comes back to you. All you have to do is use the Get Upside app and use our code touchdown to get that rolling. It's super easy. It saves you some money and it helps you move on through your day despite everything else that you have to do anyway, like buying gas. That's Get Upside with the code touchdown to start saving today. All right. I think trade scenarios are going to be an interesting thing. We might have to do just an all trade show at some point, but for now, I'm going to let that hold off and take a look. See, lots of trade partners coming as we get into that, and I think that's because the mid round value is questionable at places, and so we're going to let this tick through because it's getting tighter and tighter as we get down to the Chiefs pick at 62.
So many offers.
Yep, a lot of offers. And at the end of the day, the phones ring all the time. Just because we don't see it and hear of it doesn't mean that it isn't happening. So, as we've come down, right now we've seen a couple of corners go off. Lewis Sign, who played really well in the NCAA championship game, a safety came off the board. Looks like there was a run on offensive lineman. That's perfectly fine. We're comfortable with that, right? Which leaves us with a move tight end that I think that's overrated for him, to tell you the truth. Josh Pascal from Kentucky, I think, is an edge that is a little bit higher here than I would suspect. The two prospects that stand out the most to me at this point that are available are Kingsley Enagbare, who had a very solid Senior Bowl. Wasn't quite as explosive as Jermaine Johnson, but I think he did himself some good. I actually feel like he's got more upside. Like, he played better in the season than he showed, I think, in the practices at the Senior Bowl. And then there's Drake Jackson, a much more raw pass rusher with a lot higher physical upside out of USC. Those are the two guys. And then the aforementioned Nick Benito that we talked about before. Again, I think he'll be off the board here at 62. But those are the concepts. Now, for a true Steve Spagnuolo, bigger defensive end, I think Jackson fits the mold a little bit more. But I think they need to go away from that. I think they have to have a more dynamic, a little bit more speed rush, a guy that can change pad levels, to go away from what we've seen at the edge the last couple of seasons. Look what Melvin Ingram did for this team as he came in and was able to be more dynamic. I think I would lead towards Enagbare here.
I'm fine with that. I'm looking at this and looking at the different edge players, and I think you have to go with somebody that is going to provide you more pass rush. And the thing that you said about Jackson, which gives me a little bit of pause, is you said really unrefined and a guy that has a lot of upside. Well, that sounds a lot like Kendo. Now, don't get me wrong, Kendo's a different player, but you're putting a lot of pressure on guys to develop if you're not drafting them for what they've already done.
Yeah, and that's fair. So we'll make Kingsley Enagbare a Kansas City Chief out of South Carolina. The edge that I think, if you guys want more, you can go see some of my notes in my Twitter account from the Senior Bowl. We had a lot of updates. Great crew that was down there in Mobile for that event, and we came with a lot of takeaways. We'll be going over them all month and next month and the month after that, all the way up until the NFL draft here on this show. And just to remind everybody, we are 5 days a week. So now the Chiefs are on the clock at 94. And a really interesting player just went off the board at wide receiver, at Kyle Phillips, a guy that I think could be very effective in the slot and might let them do some more dynamic things. That's unfortunate to see. A couple of lower edges have gone, a couple of cornerbacks. And so that leaves us in an interesting dilemma, but one that I think we could address in a number of ways. Does anything stand out to you here?
Well, as I'm sitting here looking at the board, I would think that you have to be looking at linebacker if that's the position that you think that really needs it and you have a player that fits what you want. Just looking at depth, I mean, I don't think that they're going to be going running back. Really don't think you'd be looking at tight end either. So to me, it looks like it'd be linebacker.
I will say this. I think Jeremy Ruckert has been a guy that has been a nice kind of flying under the radar type prospect that showed well this last weekend in Mobile. And he has really soft hands. He's not the extreme athlete that Travis Kelce is, but he's a guy that blocks in line very well. He is really the tweener that can do a little bit of everything rather than the undersized H move guy like you have in Noah Gray. So like in terms of like building out your tight end room to be multidimensional, I think Ruckert would be a really interesting fit right here, would be able to offer them some new things. I think Ferguson is more of the pass catching type, but Ruckert would definitely be somebody I'd look at if they felt like they needed to here.
So would you compare him to Blake Bell when it comes to blocking?
I think he's comparable, at least what we've seen on college film, easily. And I think he's a better pass catcher.
And that could be big because Bell's going to be a free agent, so you're
Mm-hmm.
definitely going to need another guy there. And I still think that they're going to have back Jody Fortson after his injury, but he is not much of a blocking tight end. And I do think that there is, especially with the offensive line they have, I think that there is value in having a guy that can go out there and block pretty well. And they're not going to have that in Travis Kelce forever. Kelce is a better blocker than I think he gets credit for.
I agree with you. And so as we look at what's available and how this has gone, we've seen a run on a lot of the positions that the Chiefs are in need of. And I don't see a whole lot of outstanding value of someplace that I feel we really need to see them go at. An intriguing piece might be Alec Pierce, who can line up outside at the X. I don't know that he's anybody that you pass up a similarly graded prospect at another position. So what we see in terms of value, I agree with two of the guys on here that are available. And so maybe let's take this. As of right now today, they don't have a solution for replacing Anthony Hitchens. So linebacker is on the table. There are two of them here that really fit what the Chiefs want to do. One, in Quay Walker, who played for the national championship Georgia Bulldogs and is able to do a little bit of everything. He comes downhill. Did you see how I got that in there?
Yep.
He comes downhill really well, but he can do a bit of everything. He's not a specialist in any dimension as far as I'm concerned, at least not from what I've seen. But the other guy that stands out to me is Chad Muma, who I think is actually a top 4 linebacker in this class. And if he were available here at 94, A, I would question, is there some injury we don't know about in the medicals revealed something? B, I would say everybody's sleeping on him because I think he can play the pass as good as anybody on this roster, including Willie Gay right now. He's not quite as athletic, but he's instinctual in the pass game. He can come downhill. And for playing an outside backer now that Nick Bolton should be the middle, I think he'd be a really nice complement in the 3-down set. And when you go to 2, this would be somebody that can cycle in with Willie Gay and Nick Bolton, and you can have 3 coverage linebackers out there. I think Chad Moon is a perfect fit.
Take him. Because you have to also remember, you're also going to be replacing a guy in Ben Neiman, who I know a lot of people don't like, but he does play a role in this defense. So you have to realize that they're going to have some other positions as well that they're going to need to address.
Absolutely. And just a dozen picks later, we're now to the last of the Chiefs' top 100. Right now, it might be 102-ish. That seems to be where it's falling. It might be a touch higher than that. We'll see. This is the pick that the Chiefs will get in return for the hiring by the Chicago Bears of Ryan Poles as their general manager.
And there goes your guy, Alec Pierce, that you were talking about.
Right. He just came off the board. Looks like some depth tackles have gone. This is where the running backs start to get going. Now I think it's more of a wide open field. Now, Ruckert, the tight end that we just talked about, is still available. That could be an option. As is Quay Walker. He did not go. There's some explosion at the running back spot. People right now will be clamoring to take James Cook out of Georgia if they see that he's available, because he has that higher gear that Chiefs people want out of the Chiefs running game. Is that value? That's where it comes down to.
Here's the problem. I don't have a problem with drafting running backs. I was really excited when they got CEH a couple of years ago. But here's the problem. Andy Reid is Andy Reid. He is not going to run the ball. And drafting a guy in the 3rd round, even though this is an additional pick that you normally wouldn't have, I think is going to be kind of a waste. If and we'll have to see what they do with the running back position, because right now the only one that they have under contract is Gore and Clyde. So
yeah, I think there's a re-sign in the future there, but I agree with you. I would not go running back here, despite there being a number of recognizable names. I just don't think that's good value at this point. So the players that stand out to me was Ruckert, like I said, the more pass catching type Ferguson at the tight end spot is available. Damari Mathis played pretty decent at the Senior Bowl, but I don't know that he does anything to help you as much as Kobe Bryant does, who is a guy that I think has been overshadowed a little bit by his teammate Sauce Gardner. But I think he can put in some good reps for you. I think he's an upgrade, honestly, from what you have in everybody but Fenton and Snead. I think he would come in and likely win that 3rd spot and be one of the top 3 corners on this roster.
No love for any of the interior defensive linemen, huh?
There's a couple of guys that are interesting, but it's a lot of interior offensive linemen here that are still ranked pretty high. I mean, Cole Strange had a great week at the Senior Bowl. that'd be fine if you didn't have Creed Humphrey. And I think a 3rd round pick is definitely something too high to use on a guy that will be in a backup role no matter what.
No, I agree. All right, I am sold on the corner from Cincinnati.
Yeah, okay. I think that's going to be fun and gives them a winning program and a lot that they can take away in terms of versatility. Again, overshadowed, but I think mistakenly so, in playing across from Sauce Gardner at Cincinnati. So that's the way that it's come down for our first mock draft of the offseason. We went a little long, folks. We'll try to speed that up next time, but we're going to get there. At the end of the day,
pick. Real quick.
Oh, we decided to go 4.
Yep, we did to go 4. Who you got?
We've made 4 selections, as I understand, though.
That's true, but we said 4 rounds, so.
Okay. So just looking at the board as it's fallen here.
Any of the safeties you like?
Sterling, Nick Cross, Tyson Anderson. Nobody that stands out that I feel, although Brian Cook makes plays, I don't know that he has the versatility to play deep like the Chiefs seem to want to do, especially if they're going to let Juan Thornhill come and try to play some of that robber role. Cook does play the robber pretty well, and he can play in the box pretty well. He would be the first one that really sparks my mind right here. I would say that the best prospect fit overall might be another developmental edge, Tyreek Smith, who got a little bit beat up by Penning at the Senior Bowl, but had some really nice reps on his film coming from Ohio State and would give them the needed depth to try to just take the shotgun effect with Kando and he and our earlier selection to just try to get enough youth at the edge spot to make it a unit that can get home.
Let's do it. They need edge help.
Absolutely done. So just to recap here, folks, Chiefs were able to take the huge and mobile coming off of a lower leg fracture, but no soft tissue damage, Drake London out of USC at wide receiver. Then they came back with Kingsley Enagbare from South Carolina, the edge. Chad Muma, an off-ball linebacker, can play in coverage. Kobe Bryant, that is a bit of both, can play outside, played a lot of nickel at Senior Bowl at the cornerback spot from Cincinnati. And another developmental edge, a guy that has some upside in Tyreek Smith, the edge from Ohio State. And that's our first look at this mock. How do you feel about it, Chris?
Pretty good. I think that actually addresses a lot of their needs.
A lot of defense. I always like to see that.
They need defensive help.
And with that 7th and final pick, they select a fullback. Sorry, I just had to have another one.
Okay, you're done. That is going to be it for us today. Thank you all for listening. We will be back with you to talk more about this Chiefs team and what they're going to do in the offseason tomorrow